It's now my great pleasure to introduce someone who needs no introduction, Jefferson Reid, who, after they threw me out of Grasshopper, became the director. Actually, we overlapped, he and Seth, for many years in the work at Grasshopper. Jeff is recently retired. He's a distinguished professor at the University of Arizona, and introduced the tenets of behavioral archaeology at Grasshopper, which I'm sure we're going to hear about right now. So, Jeff?
I want to talk about behavioral archaeology because it combines Uncle Willie's archaeology, his neo-processual archaeology, with some empirically based archaeology that I was raised, something we call culture history, with some of the things learned at the Vernon Field School, which Uncle Willie did not talk much about. So it's a combination of a lot of these things. And this is going to be my attempt to convince you that it works. There. I want to illustrate several points. One, it's 4 strategies that emphasizes strong cases, and we're currently putting together a book on strong cases, but it's the relationship between human behavior and material culture in all times and places. Oh my goodness. Do we need that?
Yes.
Yes. How was that?
Great.
Better. Good. It was put together by me and Michael Schiffer and the late Bill Rathje when Schiffer and I were TAs for Bill Rathje here at the university. Oh, I don't know if we were bored in the back of the room, but we were in the back of the room, and we scribbled this, and through a series of dissertation discussions and computations, we put together this thing that we were going to call behavioral archaeology. We thought it was so neat. It was so incredibly neat. It was 4 cells that put together material objects and human behavior. We had collapsed all of the study of material culture into a neat 4-cell matrix. It never went anywhere. Strategy 1 is still what most people view as archaeology, and most people, of course, here at the Field School discussions dealt with Strategy 1, but we'll hear some more people later on. Survey. This gives you an idea of survey in the Grasshopper region. And I'm going to use Grasshopper as an example of these 4 strategies as we were able to put them together over the years. This is Grasshopper Pueblo. The Pueblo is right here. This is the Pueblo here. This is the historic trading post, and the Field School is nestled here in the trees. The Field School built by Raymond H. Thompson in his own hands through experience that he gained as a CB at the end of World War II in the Pacific, and added to by Uncle Willie, very cleverly, who bought small cabins that were then given to you. But this is what the archaeological record looks like at Grasshopper. There's a lot of material on the floor, so reconstructing what went on is not all that difficult. We have a fairly direct method for interpreting activities on room floors. But historical archaeology is also part of Strategy 1. This is Chetasky Farms, which was an object of field school investigation. And you will see here, that's Jeff Dean. Jeff Dean is a young man and leading an expedition to take field school students, this is Mark Harlan, to this historical Apache homestead in order to date its various components. This is Michael Collins, who was then on the field school staff. This was the home of Eva Watt, and there has been a book written by the late, edited by Keith Basso on Eva Watt's life and her growing up at Chetasky Farms. Strategy 2, ethnoarchaeology. And here is where Uncle Willie comes in. Uncle Willie did some early work in the 1960s, actually 1966, wasn't it? 65. This is the Apache camp. This is the Apache Wickiup. This is a closer view of the Apache Wickiup. This is the floor of the Apache Wickiup. I have no idea.
The next one will electrocute you.
It is a test of my magnetism. This is one of the earlier exercises in ethnoarchaeology done by Uncle Willie and the late Jim Ayers, published in New Perspectives, edited by Benford and Benford in 1968, the same year that David Clark published Analytical Archaeology. That's trivia you can use to your own advantage in some way. This is that camp that was analyzed using archaeological techniques, and then they go and talk to the people who actually lived there in order to test their various interpretations. Their archaeological interpretations were tested against the ethnographic responses of the people who actually lived there. Experimental archaeology. This is another example of the new archaeology at Grasshopper. We see here the stockman, Gene Seeley, who is skinning a bear with stone tools, these obsidian tools, which were produced by Don Crabtree, a noted flint knapper. This is one example of the type of experimental archaeology which has been done by a number of individuals. You use different techniques or different tools on different materials in order to see what is going to be the use wear left on the edge. This also could be sandwich number 2 at Jimmy John's. Roast beef. Did y'all ever eat bear, Raymond? Most experimental archaeology here at the university was done by Michael Schiffer, who established the Laboratory of Traditional Technology. This is a young Michael Schiffer. Strategy 3. Strategy 3 has a number of different themes associated with it. One is social relevance, one is chronicle, one is indigenous archaeology. The cleanest example of social relevance, that is the relevance of the past for contemporary behavior, is Jerry Diamond's Collapse: How Societies Choose to Fail or Succeed. You can see here how he has used some past examples in order to make the case for overall collapse. Chronicle is more concerned with contemporary considerations of multivocality and alternative interpretations of the past. And here I'll just mention one, and that is the question, when did the Western Apache arrive in east central Arizona? As we all know, Athabascan speakers have a homeland up here, and they moved into the Southwest at various times. This is a matter of different interpretation. We're concerned with the Western Apache and the Fort Apache area, and here is Glenn Cromwell, an Apache, who is assisting us in excavating a mescal pit, which is a misnomer. It's where mescal was roasted, and it creates kind of a mound. It's filled with charcoal, which we thought would provide tree ring dates, but it did not. So this early attempt did not work. Then we decided on a different technique, and that is we would use Coronado as a baseline, Coronado coming through this area and calling this area the Tierra Despoblado, the depopulated area. And I use here this being the region that James Burkitt saw was the most important possibility for a route of Coronado's advance team through the mountains. It was a military route. It was also the Mormon honeymoon route. And Burkitt saw this as being the most probable route through the mountains. This is in dispute, as you may well know. But taking this as a baseline, then we go to the excavation of kivas, Wickiups, actually. This is a Wickiup at Grasshopper Spring. This is Wickiup number 1, in which a cartridge case was found. Wickiup number 2 had a tree growing out of the circle of stones. That tree was cored, and we got a tree ring date from that tree. So what we have is Wickiup number 1 gives us a date saying it's later than 1872. Wickiup number 2 gives us a germination or pith date of 1661. If we take Coronado at 1540, then we're talking about, in this area, the Apache coming in at around 1600. That is not accepted by everyone, but this is clearly what we have published and what we see in the Grasshopper area for this particular point in space, a reasonable estimate of Apachean arrival. We know Geronimo. We know when Geronimo on the right here, surrendered, September the 4th, 1886. The past can be more complicated when we delve deeper in time. Strategy 4. Strategy 4 never was fully developed at Grasshopper. Ray, I will underscore your exhortation for people to buy the Centennial issue of Arizona Archaeologist, because in that John Welch has a bit of doggerel underscoring our concerns with garbage at Grasshopper. Also, Mike Schiffer has a detailed account of the late Bill Rathje and the Garbage Project, because the Garbage Project is the most famous project within Strategy 4. In fact, here are university students, happy university students in the days when they could play with garbage. You can see this is more fun than it really sounds when you talk about garbage. What Rathje indicates in his analysis for general consumption is be careful what you throw away. Archaeologists could be out there analyzing your garbage, and they can be saying things about you that you do not want known. Tucson garbage. Tucson is an archaeological site. This kind of brings us around to prehistoric middens and dumps and trash, to the fact that much of archaeology these days will be done with modern materials, and much of that will end up as garbage. In fact, Rathje was well ahead of his time in trying to deal with refuse disposal and what was happening to garbage. Just one little story. He was at the garbage dump outside of New York with one of these bucket augers, and they went down and they got a newspaper dated 1953, had something about Nixon in it, and it had a hot dog, and that hot dog was still whole, maybe not edible, but it had not deteriorated. That hot dog was fully preserved since 1953, and is well dated because of that newspaper that wrapped it up. I haven't touched a hot dog since then, and my advice to you is to avoid all hot dogs. The past lives in the present. Archaeology is of the past and archaeology of the present. It is my distinct privilege to introduce an intermission. We will start again at 2:40, so the intermission is 10 minutes. 8 minutes. Maybe a little long. Thank you.